Now, Mr. Beast is caught between a rock and a hard place because his friend, a person he has cast on the show and who is now making presumably millions of dollars because he is friends with Mr. Beast and was a cast member of the show, has decided to completely change his character. Now he's no longer just a dude bro who's with him on the show. Now he is a man who pretends that he's a woman. By the way, this actually has real ramifications for the way that the show feels, the way the show looks. And there's a recent video from Mr. Beast in which this dude, Chris Tyson, who believes that he is a woman, they're interacting and making all the interactions that used to be kind of normal are now extremely, extremely awkward. Okay, but Mr. Beast is stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Hello, everyone, from the capitalist hellhole of the United Kingdom. Small tangent quick. I came back from Spain a year ago. I lived in Spain for a bit. You guys know that. And of course, this is my first video back after traveling Asia for 7 months. And last April, when I got back from Spain, I got COVID straight away. And now this April, I haven't even been back that long, I've got COVID again. And very depressing because I just got, a bit more acclimatized to the UK, and now I'm going to be stuck in my room for a week. I'm feeling pretty terrible, but I'm going to take the chance to work now in case I get far worse, if you guys are wondering why I will even make this video in the first place. But yes, not looking too hot, so I'm just going to wear my hood up because it's comforting. And we'll see how we go with this video. Making content through COVID last time wasn't great, and I have to make videos now. I've had like a week off. I haven't made videos in 3 weeks. But today we are talking about something I like to talk about, and that is criticism of Mr. Beast. But wait, I don't like this criticism of Mr. Beast because there is now a full-on conservative culture war against Mr. Beast because one of Mr. Beast's co-hosts, Chris, has been on HRT and they are transitioning, and lots of people are very, very mad about that because Mr. Beast did stand up for their trans friend. Now, I've seen a lot of left-wing YouTubers really celebrate Mr. Beast doing that, and I'll give credit where it's due that he is good for sticking by his friend, but I do also in this video want to talk about the limits of Mr. Beast being like the supposed moral and good person through his amazing charity work, and how his audience who aspire to be like him are now reacting when he does something pretty objectively moral. He stands by his friend in the face of loads of criticism just for them being trans and being who they are. But of course, I do want to talk about this insane right-wing reaction to Mr. Beast, and also how they don't care about Mr. Beast. They're just using Mr. Beast as another culture war issue, and they literally have the same talking points, which are pretty ridiculous. So we're going to be talking about Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro today, trying to, pretend they care about Mr. Beast. And you guys know, I'm the OG Mr. Beast hater. When I started criticizing Mr. Beast like 3 years ago, no one else was criticizing him. And if I am saying criticism leveled at him is completely ridiculous, then you just know I'm an authority on this criticism. You know it's ridiculous, and of course it's just motivated by lots of bigotry. But I wouldn't go as far in saying that Mr. Beast is some great like trans ally, because he's still like some Elon Musk simp, the same guy who's basically removed any terms of service restrictions against dead naming trans people, and Mr. Beast is tweeting about Elon Musk like literally today. So we're going to talk about all of that in the video, but before we go any further, please like the video. Tell me in the comments what you think about all of this. Also, the chocolate orange pyramid thing is back. This is only for 75k subscribers. I'm of course nearly on 100k. I promise when we get to 100k, I will rebuild the pyramid. Obviously, you can't even leave the house at the moment because I have COVID, but that is coming back. Help me get to 100k. We're so close. Under 2k until we get there will be such an amazing milestone. If you're someone who just lurks and watches my channel because it pops up and you're recommended, consider subscribing. Also, follow me on social media at the Kavernacle, on Twitter, on Instagram. Instagram is where I posted about all my travels around Southeast Asia. That is all in the highlight reels. If you care about what I've been up to over the last 7 months, I recommend checking out my Japan stuff. I did document it very thoroughly, and also consider becoming a patron. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible. And the benefits of being a patron, again, access to the private patrons Discord server and my Nintendo Switch friend code. Also, check out my second channel and check out the subreddit. The links to everything are down in the description. So before we start talking about everything in this drama, I think it's important to know, because I know people might pick me up on this thinking I am misgendering Chris. As far as I know, Chris goes by any pronouns. It says on Chris's own Twitter page. Mr. Beast called Chris he, so I'm guessing that at this stage of their transition, they are okay with any of these pronouns. Like I said, through my research, I haven't seen anything else about Chris that suggests that they want to be, referred to as she, perhaps. So I'm just going off what their close friend Mr. Beast calls them. So you guys will know I have absolutely no love for Mr. Beast. I hate his content. I think his content is actually very damaging. And I actually think his content is bad for children. I just don't think it's bad for children because there's a transgender person in these videos. Now, my problem with Mr. Beast is that he says he wants to inspire children, and he wants to inspire children by doing acts of charity and acts of good. And I've made whole videos talking about how he's not really going to inspire anyone with these videos, because what are you inspiring? You're inspiring a worldview where solving systemic issues is all about individual acts of charity. Now, of course, Chris is just a co-host. Chris goes along with these videos. I guess I've criticized Chris in the past by extension by criticizing Mr. Beast videos that Chris is featured in. Remember that video where that guy won a game show, and then for some reason, Chris and Mr. Beast, showed this guy's, living standards, showed this guy's, kind of old car, and apparently bad living conditions, just to make both of themselves look better.
Technically, anybody could use $1 million, but it's clear that this is really going to change your life and help you out in a positive way, and I'm glad we could do that for you, man.
So, in that sense, I've got no love for Chris in that way, but upon researching Chris's Twitter, they seem fairly based, I guess, considering they're besties with Mr. Beast. But anyway, Chris on both their accounts has been talking a lot about transitioning, mainly just replying to transphobes. So someone saying, bro, what the F happened, posting a picture of Chris before taking HRT, and Chris says, HRT, and it's only been 2 months. Another trans user on Twitter saying, not to out Chris from Mr. Beast, but are they trans? I remember they made a helicopter joke years ago, and it really put me off the whole group. I guess it comes full circle. Chris saying, just a heads up, someone finding themselves does not always mean they are now X identity. However, this is a great time to say trans rights are human rights. Let people exist and be happy. And if this makes you mad, enjoy being on the wrong side of history looking back. So Chris has a child and recently divorced from their partner. Someone saying on a Keemstar tweet, there goes a father figure the kid won't ever be able to look up to. And then writes some weird fascist thing about hard times creating strong men. Chris replying, this is just more dog whistling that somehow trans and GNC folks aren't safe around children. Tucker begs for me to come back when I leave for 2 days to film. He is so loved and happy. Kids aren't born with hate. It's taught by people like you, and my child will only know love. I know I'm going to be a great parent, and so is every other person who puts the love of their child before everything. I made this decision because I wanted to show up as my best and happiest self for him, in a way, this way, for Tucker. And another tweet, it's never too late to start being yourself. Retweeting Pink News, saying YouTuber Mr. Beast collaborator Chris Tyson opens up about gender journey, HRT saved my life. And then it's another tweet, you all heard me call dibs, and has some sort of Mr. Beast skateboard. I think it's from a live stream, which everyone started freaking out about because of how Chris presented themselves. So we're going to read a couple more tweets, but just to bring this up, Chris talking about their divorce and their child is something that's got a lot of conservatives very, very mad. And it never stops amazing me how the whole war against trans people is literally just recycled tropes used against gay people for decades and decades, that Chris cannot be a good parent because they are transgender, right? And children need a mother and father, or somehow having two parents who do not fit the Western gender binary means that this child is going to be messed up for life. It's absolutely ridiculous. There are so many arguments like this made, whether it's about single mothers and absent fathers, whether it's two gay parents as well. It's obviously absolutely ridiculous. And it's so funny to me always that the conservative culture war focuses on saving children. And then two things are always true. Recently, most of these people turn out to be nonces in the first place. And then, of course, it goes hand in hand with they don't actually care about children because they do not support political policies that actually help children. Didn't Ben Shapiro recently say he doesn't support feeding kids for free at school and stuff like that? They don't support any healthcare policies that help children or mothers and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd bring that up because in the videos you're going to see Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro talk about this point a lot. On Chris's alt account, they write, I won't let people talk about how I abandoned my child. He is the only priority in my life. I have this love and support. That is all I need. I'm doing this for them. If that confuses you, educate yourself. If that makes you mad, leave simple. And then another tweet, I'm genuinely so glad so many people are learning what HRT is and how it can and has helped so many people because of my tweets. I was super nervous to be public about this because I've always been so private when it comes to this, but seeing conversations started because of me is amazing. It makes everything so worth it. I'm so excited to have more conversations like this in the future with all of you. So honestly, Chris seems like a pretty good person, and I'm glad they're so brave to share this journey with everyone, because as we all know, and we're going to get into, MrBeast's audience aren't very supportive. And there's one thing I'm going to talk about a bit more extensively at the end, is that when I criticize MrBeast, the people who defend MrBeast are always some of the worst reactionary YouTubers, like maybe centrist dude bros or more just like reactionary Keemstar types. And they're always criticizing me for criticizing MrBeast based on his like video content. And I think it says so much that a lot of these people are also like wild transphobes. I've seen loads of them say all trans women are men and stuff like that. And they're the people defending MrBeast, because I think it's quite indicative of the audience you can cultivate if you don't actually take a proper stand on anything. And that is a criticism of MrBeast I'm saving for later. But moving on to Beastie himself, SunnyV2, I just learned about who this YouTuber was recently, made a video, which we're going to look at in a sec, which said, why Chris will soon be a nightmare for MrBeast. And MrBeast replies, yes, this is getting absurd. Chris isn't my nightmare, he's my friend and things are fine. All this transphobia is starting to piss me off. And another tweet earlier where Carl and MrBeast were basically supporting Chris and their HRT journey. So obviously I'm not going to criticize MrBeast for standing up for their trans friend. It's good MrBeast with his massive platform did stick up for their friend and continues to feature Chris in videos. So that is a very, very good thing. And I'm not going to say he's not a trans ally in some way, but also he does have a massive platform, and the only time he's addressed this is in tweet replies, right? So most people aren't going to even see that. He could come out and write on his main Twitter or even a video and say, guys, you know, trans rights are human rights. Chris is my friend. They are not going anywhere. If you don't like it, leave, right? He could say more. He could do more. He could do more in this instance. The only thing I hope this whole thing makes him realize is there's no point being a centrist anymore. There's no point, because conservatives will attack you no matter what. Saying he's part of the trans cult now just for this tweet. These two tweets are everything MrBeast has said about trans rights, right? And conservatives still hate him for it. And MrBeast has been very careful about being some sort of political centrist because he wants to run for president one day. Don't worry, we're going to make a video about all of that too. But on this SunnyV2 video, it's getting a load of backlash. I just thought I'd show you two little segments. Basically, he goes through the whole drama and basically shows pretty much mostly tweets that are condemning MrBeast and saying pretty transphobic things. He acts like he's just like a news reporter trying to show both sides. Every time he shows a side that supports Chris and MrBeast, he puts in like little caveats about how this will be really damaging to MrBeast's brand. So let's have a look at some clips.
Chris went from lighting campfires and raising a family with his beautiful wife to now trying to be a wife with his man buns and long nails. There goes a father figure the kid won't ever be able to look up to. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Weak man times. And if we've learned anything from Hollywood in recent years, it's that adding over-the-top LGBT characters for the sake of relatability rarely works as intended, and is often nothing more than a distraction from the premise of the movie or video. I think Jimmy is in an inescapable situation. If he kicks out Chris, cancelled. If he don't, his channel will die for real. An inescapable situation is a pretty good way of describing the drama, which is also why it deserves the harsh label of being a nightmare. Jimmy has no option but to publicly express acceptance of Chris's transition, as silence or even worse, disapproval would come with obvious severe repercussions.
So obviously the framing there is that MrBeast is only doing this because he doesn't want to be cancelled, right? He's only sticking by his friend. And like I said, I don't really believe MrBeast is like the best trans ally ever. I don't actually think he'll use his platform to significantly promote transgender rights, but as most people know, a lot of people's first experience of things like this often come from personal experience. And to MrBeast, he doesn't seem someone who has inherent bigotry, he just seems a bit like naive at best. His best friend is trans, and then he learns about transgender issues, and Mr. Beast accepts him, right? And then people have stories in their own lives where family members come out as gay or trans, and it can be hard for the family because they're either ignorant or naive and stuff like that, but then eventually they accept them. But even in that personal acceptance, because they love that person, doesn't necessarily mean they will then start being really great on trans rights. You see that so much with various different things. The Conservative Party in the UK, for example, first out trans MP was like in the Conservative Party, and there's lots of Conservatives accepting them, but as a party, they're absolutely horrendous on trans rights. There's totally scenarios where people accept transgender, gay people, all these things that might not fit in with their worldview because they personally like that person. So I firmly believe Mr. Beast just is a good friend to Chris and doesn't want to ostracize them no matter what he really thinks about the broader conversation on trans rights. And in that sense, I don't even think Mr. Beast thought this would be controversial when he said it. I don't think he thought he would get insane backlash, but conservatives never miss a chance to take up a cultural crusade against anyone they don't like to really push this narrative about trans people. So of course, the right-wing press took this and now are targeting Mr. Beast. Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Stephen Crowder, basically every single person in conservative media have targeted Mr. Beast for 2 tweets and having Chris still feature in videos after Chris helped create the Mr. Beast brand. So first of all, I want to play you some clips from Matt Walsh's video 4 days ago. Mr. Beast sells out to the trans cult.
It is a faith that is almost always, or really always, misplaced. Because even the most family-friendly content, the most seemingly innocuous, as most of Mr. Beast's content appears to be, can subtly, or not so subtly, introduce concepts that will take your child down a very dark path. And in the case of Mr. Beast, that path has been opened by his sidekick and co-star on his videos named Chris Tyson. And he appears in many of Mr. Beast's videos. It's very familiar to fans of the channel. And those fans, most of them kids again, have been watching over the last few months as Tyson has transformed himself from a married man with a child to something that is supposed to look like some sort of approximation of a woman. Fans had noticed for several weeks as Tyson underwent a sort of bizarre physical change, not only growing his hair out, but beginning to appear increasingly frail and sickly and started wearing women's clothes and all the rest of it. Mr. Beast has been put in an extremely difficult situation because he built a multi-million-dollar empire with innocuous, family-friendly content targeted at kids. And now his friend and collaborator and sidekick has decided to turn these videos into a sort of visual journal of his gender transition. And now that he's gone down this road, there's really no coming back. You can expect much more pro-trans content from Mr. Beast going forward, which means that if you're a parent and you allow your child to watch Mr. Beast videos, now is a very good time to stop allowing that.
So see how much the goalposts are now shifting in conservative circles, right? So apparently before it was about like not teaching kids about gender ideology or something because you don't want to confuse them, or maybe you don't want to sexualize them in a school setting, right? Where the government is involved. Now it's about actually, no, we just don't want to see trans people at all. And they start saying, well, this content is for kids. Mr. Beast content is not specifically for kids. There is a whole thing you can click on your videos on YouTube if you want to make your content for kids. Anyone can watch Mr. Beast videos. Although he does have a large, child fan base, his content isn't specifically for children. It's not like it's running on like a children's television network or something. It's running on YouTube. And like I said, I don't think Mr. Beast is suddenly going to start making videos talking about paying for people's transitions. I don't actually think Mr. Beast particularly cares for trans people as a whole. I think more he cares for his friend. And these people think him just allowing Chris to continue being on a channel Chris has been on for like 5 years is Mr. Beast promoting some sort of transgender activism. Again, these people just don't want trans people in public society. This guy is in particular like a straight up fascist anyway. We all know that about Matt Walsh. He's pretty unapologetic about it. I made a video about him like 2 weeks ago. But the thing with these conservative culture wars, they just keep pushing the boundaries. They'll start small. They'll start saying something and then they'll push it where nah, just no transgender people on YouTube videos which anyone can watch. Newsflash from Matt Walsh, if your kid is watching Mr. Beast, he has full access to the whole of YouTube, the whole of the internet. He can go look up anything transgender. He can watch videos specifically about transgender activism and rights. I don't think most people seeing Chris is going to brainwash them in some sort of left-wing activism, but what these people are scared of is that seeing visible people like Chris challenges the Western gender binary. Matt Walsh just doesn't want general people to see trans people as just human beings. They want everyone to see trans people as some sort of degenerates, people who are a threat to children, an identity that is inherently sexual. The people at the Daily Wire challenging the status quo and the gender binary is a threat to the whole conservative worldview. So now we're moving on to what Ben Shapiro thought about all of this, and just something I want to note about Matt Walsh as well. Conservatives love personal responsibility, but somehow think Mr. Beast choosing to stand by their friend has nothing to do with their own, personal desires. It's all about some sort of like being scared of cancelled or the woke mob and stuff. It's everyone in society making them act a certain way. These people talk about personal responsibility all the time, but here's another one kind of in a similar sort of theme, is that Ben Shapiro is basically saying that Chris is very, very selfish because they want to be transgender, and that affects Mr. Beast, and that puts Mr. Beast in a very hard place, as lots of these videos say. And Chris is also being selfish because he's ruining his own family, and also he's ruining the dynamic on the Mr. Beast live streams and stuff. So let's have a look at some Ben Shapiro clips.
And people started pointing out, well, Chris, when you make life decisions, it actually has impact on other people. See, this is the magnificent narcissism of modern society, is that we decide that the personal life decisions that make us feel better in the cockles of our heart, these are the things that really matter in life, not our relationships with other people, not, in Chris Tyson's case, the relationship that he has with his wife and his kid. He has a wife and he has a kid. Let me just express something to you right now. If you decide that your feelings of comfort and gender identity are more important than your relationship with your wife and your child, you are being selfish. This is true for everyone. If you're a man and you decide that you're going to cheat on your wife because, listen, it makes you feel better about yourself. You're hitting your 40s, and now it's time for that midlife crisis, and you decide to go get a younger model and take that for a ride. Well, that is you being a bad person. That is you being a narcissist. That is you ignoring the actual priorities in your own life. Life is about what are you going to sacrifice on behalf of the people who mean the most to you. It is not about you feeling the best you can feel on the interior of you, especially because that's a really subjective feeling, and it turns out it's incredibly transitory. Not only is it transitory, when you're telling lies to yourself, it's incredibly damaging. When you're telling yourself a lie that you're a member of the opposite sex, and meanwhile, completely destroying, presumably, your relationship with your wife, and also completely confusing your own child, that actually is a bad thing to do. This should not be a controversial statement because, again, this is true for everyone. Gay, straight, gender nonconform, whatever you are, your top priority is providing for your child a level of stability and understandability to the world. And to your spouse, your highest commitment is to being the best husband or the best wife to your spouse that you can be. This does not involve you seeking yourself. You seeking yourself is a 1960s, 1970s garbage construct in which your own personal priorities take priority.
So I'll stop the video there before we talk about some other clips. Basically, Ben Shapiro is saying Chris is being selfish and his priority should be to his family and not going on this journey of self-discovery, making it seem like very, very narcissistic. But Ben, wouldn't Chris be a better parent if they are more comfortable in their own skin and get to be who they are inside, right? So if they're more happy and more comfortable as themselves, I assume they'd also be a better parent, right? Or they could choose to be in the closet, become very, very miserable, and that could lead down a very, very dark path and could have very, very bad outcomes for Chris and could also have bad outcomes on the child, because at the very least, if Chris is more miserable, you'd expect the environment for the child not to be as good. But if Chris is happy and fulfilled as the true version of themselves, you'd think that would also make them a better parent. So I wouldn't say coming out of the closet, gay or trans, is some sort of narcissistic thing. You should be in the closet for the sake of your child, because I'm pretty sure most loving children want their parents to be happy, especially if that will make them better parents. I don't really understand the logic here. And it's basically the assumption that if you come out as trans or gay to your child, then that will ruin their life or something.
Now, Mr. Beast is caught between a rock and a hard place because his friend, a person he has cast on the show and who is now making presumably millions of dollars because he is friends with Mr. Beast and was a cast member of the show, has decided to completely change his character. Now he's no longer just a dude bro who's with him on the show. Now he is a man who pretends that he's a woman. By the way, this actually has real ramifications for the way that the show feels, the way the show looks. And there's a recent video from Mr. Beast in which this dude, Chris Tyson, who believes that he is a woman, they're interacting and making all the interactions that used to be kind of normal are now extremely, extremely awkward. Okay, but Mr. Beast is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because if he says to Chris, listen, Chris, you're screwing up the dynamic of the show, right? We didn't bargain for this. You want to make your personal life decisions. You want to take some time. You want to figure out what you're all about. That's fine. But you don't get to enact your personal dramas on the set of my billion-dollar show. You don't really get to do that. And if you do that, I got to say that is not kind to me as a friend. He's not allowed to do that. Our society says that he must actually sacrifice his business for the sake of his supposed friend who's willing to put him in this position in the first place. Because if he doesn't put this guy on the air and destroy the dynamic of a show, or at least harm the dynamic of a show, then that means that he's a transphobe. But if he leaves the guy on the air, it completely messes up the dynamic of the show, and fewer people are going to watch it. And you can see that in the number of dislikes that have been racking up on Mr. Beast's YouTube page. So Mr. Beast had to make the choice, and so the choice that he chose is, of course, the wokest choice.
So Ben Shapiro is a Mr. Beast video connoisseur, I guess, saying that Chris is ruining the dynamics of the show, and the reason people are disliking the videos with Chris in it now are because Chris is ruining the dynamic by transitioning, not the fact that Mr. Beast has an audience with insane transphobes who hate seeing a visible trans person, and of course then you probably also have right-wing trolls who now go on the video to leave hate for Chris because they also hate trans people. Doesn't that make more sense? And they're acting like Mr. Beast is just like, I can't do anything about this. I want to fire Chris because they're trans now, but I'm not going to because I'll get cancelled. I really, really don't believe that. I just believe Mr. Beast, for once, in my opinion, is being a good person and being a good friend. But on that note, I want to talk about something I feel like no one is talking about when we talk about Mr. Beast and we talk about, you know, this backlash to Chris being trans on Mr. Beast's videos. And that is the audience Mr. Beast has cultivated. Some people have responded saying, when you have a really large audience, you're just going to have like some terrible people in it. But I kind of want to outline this, right? So Mr. Beast has built a channel on being moral, I guess. People see him as a moral person. Everyone always says when I criticize him, well, he's one of the rich people who gives back. He's one of the rich people who does charity work. He's so moral. He helps so many people out. But if you base your whole morality in some sort of like neoliberal capitalist version of morality, like the personal giving away of wealth, and you kind of frame that as the way to fix all issues while actually ignoring the actual issues, I think that creates an audience who want to be like you, because Mr. Beast says he wants to inspire children. Children say they're inspired by Mr. Beast to do good. But Mr. Beast doesn't actually ever take a hard stance on things. When have you really heard, without pressure, Mr. Beast talking about actual issues? The only reason he started talking about the US healthcare system is because he had a massive backlash to that video about curing blindness. And it's one of the few times he actually spoke about maybe something political, really. And now when he says something about he's sick of transphobia, everyone hates him. Loads of people who attack me relentlessly for criticizing his videos, who seem like these big Mr. Beast simps, now they're attacking him because they hate trans people. And how does he cultivate this audience? It's because you make these big stupid videos and you don't take a moral stance on anything, so you just attract random weirdos who think giving away houses or giving away loads of money to homeless people, that's the height of morality. But standing up for something moral like transgender rights, that's beyond the pale. That's not what you should inspire kids to do. You should be inspiring them to, I don't know, cure blindness with millions of dollars that they don't have. And this is because Mr. Beast is too scared to take a firm stance on something. Let me give another example, right? Because Mr. Beast has said multiple times he wants to be president one day. This guy seriously thinks he's going to be president one day. And I've said before in the past, it reminds me of Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey was mulling over running for the governor of Texas. And then I made a whole video on this. He'd done a lot of interviews and people would ask him questions. And for liberals answering about like trans rights and gay marriage and women's rights, it's not hard to give like a positive answer about defending them. But Matthew McConaughey couldn't do that because he positioned himself as this centrist. And as a centrist, you can't take a hard position on anything because you're going to alienate a section of your fans. So Mr. Beast has built his career as a centrist who actually won't take a firm stance on anything specific. Yes, vague things like saving the planet, stopping climate change, things that aren't very controversial when you frame them in such a vague way. It's not like in Mr. Beast's videos about cleaning up the ocean or planting trees, he started talking about how, you know, consumer capitalism, neoliberal capitalism is literally destroying the planet, because that would require him to take a firm stance on things. And then you're going to alienate certain members of your audience who are more conservative. So in a very cynical way, Mr. Beast doesn't do that. He doesn't stand for anything because he either is doing this all as a marketing gimmick, which I believe he is, or he's just trying to become as popular as possible. And in his weird, like, centrist, Elon Musk inspired charity work, he's just drawing in a very reactionary crowd. But when he stands up for trans rights in like 2 tweets, let's not pretend he's going on his videos telling people to donate to trans charities or something like that, then the whole right-wing mob come after him, loads of his fans then start disliking him, saying it's the end of his career, it's the end of his content, because Mr. Beast, in all his morality, never actually stood for anything. He's never really done anything significant for like LGBT rights beyond lip service across the last 4 years, and he's never really taken a firm stance on any political issues, despite the fact he wants to run for president. He thinks you can solve the world's problems by getting corporate sponsors to pay for like a food bank or something like that. And that is the limits of centrism, is that when you actually take a stand for something because it personally affects you, it's Mr. Beast's own friend, it's not like he just came out and said trans rights, then you alienate a certain segment of your audience, and it just proves the limits of these things. Like, so many people telling me all the time, Mr. Beast is such a moral person. He's such a good person. What have you done? What have you done? Mr. Beast is amazing because he's given money to various things, and that just shows the limit. Because if you don't actually take a position on either side of an issue, then this is what happens. And the one thing I hope Mr. Beast learns is that this doesn't pay off, because Mr. Beast, you might as well say trans rights now. You might as well make a whole video telling people to donate to trans charities, because they don't care. They see you as that anyway. They now see you as a communist, trans activist because you tweeted one thing. So why don't you stop sitting on the fence and actually take a side now? Take the good side, take the moral side, stick up for your friend and stick up for people like your friend, because as Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro were showing you, conservatives now see you just like us. They don't make a distinction between me and you now because you paid some lip service to trans rights. So why don't you just play into that, and why don't you just take the side of good? Stop trying to be like some Elon Musk bro and sit on the fence to make yourself the biggest YouTuber ever. Maybe just use now your personal experience of one of your friends going through their trans journey, and maybe, I don't know, take a side on something. So overall, Mr. Beast, good for tweeting that, but that is my criticism of Mr. Beast. And of course, conservatives will weaponize anything, and Mr. Beast, I hope he just learns it doesn't matter how centrist you portray yourself, it doesn't matter how uncontroversial you portray yourself, they're waiting, conservatives, and they're gonna get you, even if you think you aren't saying anything significant. So that is it for my first video back. Also the first video with COVID, got 2 more coming out this week as well. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.